Yo, what's up guys? It's Talon, and today we're going to be talking about how we got Grandmaster on every single role, 5 different accounts in one season solo queue, and it only took us about a little over a month, about 35-ish days. I'm going to show you the stats of each account. So this is my support account. This is my mid lane account. This is my jungle account. And then this is my ADC account. The ADC account, you can see has really crazy stats right now. This one's 49 marks. The jungle account is about 41 marks, and then the other accounts are right around 30. And then finally, this is my Baron lane account here. So we got him on every role. I'm going to now just go through a small gameplay with you guys, but we're just going to be talking about the hardest and the easiest parts of each role in solo queue, so you guys maybe know what type of roles you might want to, continue to grind in the future. So let's get right into it. Okay, guys, so as we jump into this gameplay, I'm just going to be talking again about the easiest part of playing each of these roles in solo queue and the hardest part of each role. So we're going to start off with top lane. So the best part about playing top lane in solo queue, and the biggest reason that you might want to play it, is because if you are significantly better than your opponent, you can completely carry a game. I'm sure we've all had those games where the enemy Fiora solo kills the enemy top laner within 3 minutes, and they solo kill them again at 5 minutes, and then they're just completely, it's impossible to kill them. It doesn't matter if you got fed, it doesn't matter what happened. Like, you can have an insanely large lead and just completely stomp a game and carry a game, even when it looks completely unwinnable. You're going to see kind of a great example of this game where I shit on this Jax really hard. Meanwhile, my teammates are kind of running it down, and we're still able to carry. But then the opposite side of that is you have very low control over the rest of the map. So you can be doing really, really well in your side lane matchup, but maybe it's a matchup that you can only get a 500 gold lead in. You can only get a 300 gold lead because it's just some matchups just aren't, you can't 1v9 certain matchups. You can't just completely solo kill, even if it's a really bad player. If it's a Garen, sometimes you just can't kill them. You can just get a bit of a lead. And when that happens, if your entire map is falling apart before 6 minutes, you're going to lose those types of games. So it's very frustrating when you feel like you have a lack of control over the map, but it's equally as, rewarding when you destroy someone so hard and are able to carry those types of games. And then if you play consistently well in the Baron lane, you're going to be able to carry a lot of games or have that additional pressure. And just like, if you just have a slightly worse team, but you get so much pressure, then your slightly worse team is still able to play the game decently well, just because of the fact that you get all that pressure. So again, overall, if there's a large skill gap, you can 1v9 very hard. However, you have low control over the rest of the map in the Baron lane. Going on to the jungle next, the biggest thing with jungle is that you can impact every lane. So obviously, as a jungler, if you understand laning really well, you can know which lane to path to initially. You can oftentimes predict the volatility of the lane and which lane is going to lead to, more kills, more fighting, and often impact that lane really early. But then say that lane that you're going to ends up not going well and it just didn't work out. Well, now you can find whoever is strong on your team and you can play around them. So you have the ability to play around whoever you want. Your top laner sucks, that's all right. You don't have to worry about him. Go to your mid laner, go to your ADC. Everyone sucks. Now that's where the issue comes in. The difficult part about jungle is when all of your laners are losing very early, you have very low control. In other lanes, you often get to impact the lanes. So if, again, your top laner and your ADC are playing really bad, but you're the mid laner and you're winning lane, at least you have someone who's strong. But as a jungler, no matter how much better you are than the jungler on the enemy team, you can't always, outskill them and out-hands them early, because if I'm way better than the enemy top laner, I just solo kill them. If I'm way better than the enemy jungler, but all my laners are losing, I sometimes don't have anything I can really do. Like, you have a lack of control over the actual impact of the game. So it's, again, overall, you have the most control. It is the best solo queue role, is going to be definitely the jungle, but the issue can be the fact that you can't necessarily carry as well when you have 3 losing lanes, or at least it can be very difficult to. I have videos on how to do that. You watch my jungle videos, I talk about concepts like playing on the opposite side of the map of the enemy jungler, making sure you're just playing for gold bounties, trying to sneak that that first Baron when the second dragon spawns. These types of things can help, but you can still have a lot of trouble with that. Now we go on to mid lane. So mid lane overall can impact every lane while still laning. So it kind of has the benefits of jungle, but then also the benefits of a lane. As top lane. So again, top lane, large skill gap, you can 1v9. Same thing in mid. If the enemy are much worse than you, you solo kill them, you get that big lead early, you go up 2-0, 3-0, up over 1k gold in lane, you can do that. You can't do that, again, from jungle, for example. But then you also get to roam a lot, like if you want. If you have the right champion who is a good roaming champion in the mid lane, you definitely have the ability to roam very frequently to help out your team, as long as you're pushing your lane first and you're worried about your own gold. that type of thing. And that's kind of where the issue comes in with the mid lane. Sometimes as a mid laner, you do the correct play, which is to stay in your lane, to play for your turret, to play for the wave, to play the mathematically correct way. And then the enemy will rotate on a stupid wave, but then they get a double kill, a triple kill, because your teammates don't listen to pings, or maybe you do forget to ping, which could be your fault in that case. And then the enemy snowball from there despite kind of making mistakes. So it's a role where there's more times where you can be better than the enemy or making the correct play, and the correct play ends up not having the ideal result. So again, like I've had games where, for example, in Ahri, I push a wave under Ahri, I make her recall, and she ends up just going top lane, getting a random double kill or a random solo kill and getting gold from that. Even if she loses out on gold, it can sometimes still work out just because it tilts your team, or if she happens to get like a triple kill in some rare case. Like these types of things happen more frequently, and that can be the frustrating part about mid lane and sometimes makes it harder to carry. ADC right now, mainly, and again, has been my most successful role so far. I do still think jungle's a better role to carry. I think mid is also a better role to carry, but in this season I've had the most success with jungle, which I do believe it is, you know, just an individual, you know, circumstance like that. I've done really well with this role because I play some of the champions that are really good in the role, and I do think the role is strong right now. So it's a mixture of a lot of things, but the items right now are really what make ADC so strong. Bloodthirster is incredibly good. Pretty much first item for a majority of ADCs. It allows you to have, it's a good early game, it gives good AD, it gives good stats, while still giving that insane passive that makes it really hard to die. So before you're an ADC, the enemy try to, you know, dive you when you get fed, you just die. Now you have Bloodthirster, you have a lot more potential to live from assassins, from someone diving on you, that type of thing, and so that definitely makes it a bit easier to play the game. And then also other items like Navori Quick Plays works really well on certain champions like Xayah, for example, or champions like Corki are just broken right now. So Sivir too. So basically, like, the fact that the ADC role is actually just really strong right now and is insanely good when you hit 2-3 items on these really strong ADCs means that you're going to be able to carry a lot of games if you farm well and you're efficient and that type of thing. But you lack agency in this role, and so that's going to be the negative part. The problem with ADC, and it will always be the problem, is that you don't control what your team does. If your team decides to 4-man the Baron for no reason, then you have to go and auto-attack the Baron with them, because that's what your role does. Your role is just a role that follows people. All you need to do and be good at on ADC, you need to lane well, you need to farm well, and you need to team fight well. If you do those three things, there's not that much more to the role. Of course, there are, you know, situationally things that you have to do differently, but like, for the most part, that's what you have to do in this role. And because it has, you know, such little responsibility, it's often hard to actually fully carry when your teammates make these silly decisions. But again, if your teammates are somewhat reasonable, they don't even have to play well, just reasonable, and you farm well, you team fight well, all these things, you're going to be able to carry very effectively, which is obviously the benefit of this role. And then finally, going into ADCs, so our support rather, sorry, words are hard. Going into support. So the problem with support is obviously you don't control like the damage, you don't deal damage, right, as much. So lacking that damage means that someone else has to carry. So you can play super well, but if you make really good engages, or you lane really well and buff your team well, and you position well, you time your veils well if you're an enchanter, that type of thing, you could do all these things and it wouldn't matter if your teammates just, you know, aren't good enough, because no matter how well you play, you can't deal damage, or not a lot of it in a majority of situations. Because even if you play Senna, you play Lux, you play Brand, you still get less gold, so you're still doing less gold or less damage than a Brand mid, a Lux mid, you know, whatever. So even if you play the carry champions in this role, you just don't have that damage, which means if you have 4 really bad players on your team, which we do know it happens a lot, it's hard to carry. However, the reality of ranked is, yes, you're going to have bad teammates the majority of time, but the enemy are also bad. And so all you're usually doing as support is trying to find the least bad teammate relative to the opponents. So if I have a bad mid laner, but my bad mid laner is 10% better than the enemy mid laner, who's also really bad, and so that means he has a 500 gold lead, I might play around that guy. And so the benefit of that is anytime you have one player who's actually genuinely good or is just better than the opponents, you can really hard carry, because if you're playing super well, you can do so much for them. The way that I said it's really hard to play ADC when your teammates don't, you know, make engages for you, you lack that agency. In support, you have so much agency, especially on engaged supports, to decide what it is that your team does when they do it. You get to control the warding to give your team vision. You get to control a lot of the rotations of which lane you play around, because if you're playing around the, you know, the jungler, for example, who's fed, and you rotate with them, then you have that numbers advantage if the enemy support stays in lane. So you have a lot of impact in terms of roaming, in terms of facilitating your strong players, but it's really, really difficult, again, if you have 4 bad players to, you know, just solo carry. You just basically don't have that solo carry potential the same way you do in other roles. And so those are overall kind of the differences. If you would, now I'm going to give you guys a quick ranking of which I think are the best and worst for solo queue this season. So I think the best is jungle. I think the second best is mid. I think the third best is ADC. Fourth is support. And fifth is Baron lane. Currently, I would say Baron lane and support are very close in terms of which is worse. I would say jungle by far the best, and mid ADC are very close. That's overall how I feel about it. And then that's mostly all that we had to say. Now I just want to show you guys this ending little kill here, because I thought this was a pretty funny last play. So we're just gonna admire my last Jace play as we end up you know, ending this video. So everyone's really low. I Q flash E, and then we just one-shot everyone, and I thought that was really cool, you know. So I really like the Q flash, and then you Q again because it puts your E combo. I got 2 kills with that one. We jump on them, we one-shot them, and we win the game. This game I think got us to like 28 marks, and we eventually obviously got Grandmaster with Baron lane. But that was really all I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I am grinding a bunch, obviously trying to get Challenger on every role, and then ideally Sovereign. It's going to be hard because I'm starting school in about 3 days, starting college, my second year of college. So I will have less time, but I'm going to try to invest as much time as I can to get minimum Challenger every role, and ideally, obviously, Sovereign. That's the goal. We have about a little under 2 months to do that. So hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one.